Documents.
Okay, I'm gonna filling in for Don Wright. I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 4:31. Yay! And our first order of business is approval of the minutes. So,
I move to approve.
Second.
okay.
Open them.
Minutes pass approval. We had a second. Did you guys? Okay.
Vote. Did everybody vote already?
Aye.
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 Might as well now.
Well done, DA. Well done.
Thank you. And we'll move on to public comments. And it's an empty house tonight. And then on to general business presentation. We have a presentation of historical Oregon newspapers, the early Oregon voices, and the new public access catalog. So this is exciting.
So I'd like to introduce our reference librarian, Sue Adams, who has been one of the driving forces behind our digitization project and is keeping it on track for me. Go ahead and have a seat. And she will do a show and tell. Oh, and we should put down the screen. Wait a minute.
We can.
You can just, since we don't have public.
Linda can't
we can
see
just,
it. You want to
yeah,
come sit by me? Okay.
Okay.
Everybody switch left.
Switch left.
On the floor?
No, the little toggle switch down here.
Oh, presentation.
Presentation.
Okay.
Push it to the left.
Presentation to the left.
So you get the bouncing DVD blue thing.
Okay, there we go. Yep, that's what mine's doing too. Did you do yours?
No, I didn't toggle it. Oh, there it goes.
Do you have a
Okay.
screen,
Thank you.
Sue? Do you have something?
DVD.
What are you looking at?
Where does it's like loading DVD video, it says.
I've got the screen of Early Oregon Voices, digitizing
Oops.
historic Oregon City newspapers.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I've got the printed document in front of me, so that's
Which
great.
looks great.
But you want to see her PowerPoint she worked so hard on.
Yes.
All right.
Well, we don't have to do the PowerPoint. It's just nice to have the visual help with
Yeah, to
some of
guide
the
us.
statistics.
It is. And my name isn't in the brochure anywhere, so.
Can we do questions and answers first then?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're probably all going to be answered.
All right. So there's this Oregon Digital newspaper program sponsored
Oh,
by
yeah,
the
I was
University of
having that
Oregon.
problem.
Are they funding part of your work, or are they
No,
doing
they're
some other
they're
kind of a-
doing the work for us.
Oh.
They have a website that I'm
PowerPoint
going to
only
show
runs
you
off
called
of
the
what
Historic
she's
Oregon
running.
Newspapers website, and that's
Okay.
that postcard that you have
Yes.
is from them. And
You have to talk into the microphone because we were being. Well, they're not.
No, we
wanna
don't need it.
see-
We
We
need
just
to
need
see
to
it
see it on their
here.
monitors.
And she's
What-
plugged in properly.
Yeah, and they went to
Am I?
presentation. And
We have a little bouncing blue ball.
Oh, because it's bouncing over here.
no, and she's seen the screen. Oh, you don't have one of these?
I had the other, I had that, but I just, maybe it's in there.
Oh, there it is.
There we go.
Does the
Bear with
screen
us,
have
we
to-
have.
Do you have to bring the
upgrade
screen
to our
down?
server, and we think our AMX system, which kind of covers all this electronics, is on a little bit of a delay. Ah, there we go.
Ta-da!
So, apologies, but you're all set.
Great,
So,
thank you.
Kelly, just as a question, does the screen have to be down in order for them to
It
see
does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know. Good to
Interesting.
Yeah,
know.
hopefully, we will have this fixed by, we haven't,
Well, you know
IT
me.
helped us.
I always need help anyway, so whatever. Thank you.
well, I just love coming in here with you guys.
Yeah. We love seeing you. Thank you. Great. Now, just because it is up there.
so everyone has it, and I can.
Yes.
Okay. So you probably, or you may know this, but the library received a grant of $22,905 to digitize the Oregon City newspapers from territorial days, so basically the mid 1800s, through 1922. And we got the grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services through the Library Services and Technology Act, which we call LSTA, which is administered by the Oregon State Library. And in addition, some funding is provided by the Oregon City Public Library. So today I'm going to give you a bit of an update about the status of the project, and I have some had some news today too that's very interesting. But one thing that happened in between the brief proposal and the full proposal is that our Karen discovered paper copies of the Oregon City Enterprise, the Morning Enterprise, and the Banner Courier at another museum. So we decided with this grant to re-microfilm these paper issues because this provided a better quality of microfilm, and the digitizing is done from the microfilm, therefore it provided a better quality of digital content. And in addition, we're hoping that the added content will provide some missing pages and some missing issues.
Yay, Karen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Milwaukee Museum. They've been stashed in the basement for years and years and years, and we're slowly going to be getting them into better storage.
So we have asked the Oregon Digital Newspaper Program at the University of Oregon to do the preparation and digitization. And they've been doing this for quite a few years. And the advantage of this is they'll do the digitizing work and the microfilming work, plus they will put the digital newspaper content online on their website for free public access. The free part of that's very important. And keyword searching on the Historic Oregon Newspaper's website, which I am going to show you briefly. Now, the current status of the project, I said the project is about 70% complete, and then I say end of 2013, all digital newspapers on the Historic Oregon Newspaper's website. It looks like the one thing I found out today is they may all be on the website by the end of this month.
Oh, good.
We've also have all the paper newspapers microfilmed. So the reason the project isn't 100% complete is there's two other components to the project. One of them is publicity about the program. So, thus, my presentation, and I'll be presenting to other groups. The second thing is we have to tell our funders why this is an important program and why it will be beneficial, the kind of the evaluation part of it. So you'll all see that you got an evaluation form, and I would like you folks to please fill it out because this presentation does count for what I said I would do. Now, I'm an introvert and I'm shy and I can be a bit bumbling in my presentations, but you're not evaluating me, you're evaluating the project itself. Okay, so now I have what's now online. There were two newspapers on the Historic Oregon Newspaper's website prior to this project. The Oregon Spectator, which was, as far as we know, the first newspaper published on the West Coast, and the Oregon Free Press, which had a few issues in 1848. We originally proposed to put 6 additional titles on, and another surprise that I found out basically today was that in actuality there's more titles than 6. What I thought, and I think which the librarians through time have thought is that there was just one Oregon City Courier, when in actuality it went through a lot of changes. They had their own number, they were different publishers, and so it may end up that we're putting as many as 12 new titles onto the website.
So it's not different content per se, it's just different.
Different publishers and different slants sometimes, depending on who your editor was.
Yeah, well, what they have is they have a different
CLC records.
Library of Congress gives a classification number, kind of like our Social Security numbers. So each of these has a different Social Security number, therefore they're considered a different title. So, for what that's worth, and that's kind of interesting and exciting. That's something new we learned. So, I'm going to show you the website now, the Historic Oregon Newspapers website. I know that I don't have a lot of time today, so I'm not going to go into a huge training. I just want to show you a few features that I think are of interest.
Teaser.
Yeah. Now, you'll notice the Oregon map with some towns on the map. This means that these towns have newspapers that have been digitized and put on this website. As of November 1st, there were about 500,000 pages, newspaper pages, on the website, and about 75 titles. Now, up here at the top, right under the decorative banner that says Historic Oregon Newspapers, you'll see some tabs. And the second one from the left says Titles. And this is a list of the titles that are on the website. Oops. And I'm going to arrow down to the Oregon Spectator. As you'll remember, the first newspaper on the West Coast. And this is the earliest date that's been digitized, and then the latest date that's been digitized. Now, keep in mind that that doesn't necessarily mean that these are the entire run of issues, because newspapers, this is paper, this is fragile. Things get lost, and in some cases, we don't even know the dates that a newspaper started being published.
Although in the Spectator's case, those dates are right.
Yeah. So let's click on to the earliest. Let's see the first newspaper on the West Coast. And there we go. Here's the front page.
Are these from new scanning?
Spectator is not. It's from existing microfilm.
No, this is from the old microfilm.
Do you think this was out of originally scanned from one that was in a book or something?
Basically back in
Yeah.
about the 1980s, there was this all-out call. Check your basement, check your barn, check your attic. If you have a newspaper, bring it to us. So, and my understanding is they then sorted them and looked for the best possible paper copy. And they went through museums and everything too, but a lot of them came from private individuals.
Or were these
That-
found in the Oregon City
Not
Library?
necessarily.
There isn't anything
Some of these may be you'll see differences when you look at the scans. You'll lose stuff in the gutter where they were bound and they were trying to hold them open. But some of the Spectators, I think were mostly flat papers. The problem was, what condition was the paper in when somebody gave it to them.
Some of the microfilm, I believe, is from the 50s, and then the project that Karen is referring to took place, I believe, in the early 90s. I had a friend that worked for California, a friend from library school that worked for California, and so a lot of things were re-microfilmed and or added during that time period. Most of this microfilmed is owned by the University of Oregon, and my understanding is that the University of Oregon was the site of the Oregon newspaper project.
Yeah, I think that started in the mid-90s there in Oregon.
I
Yeah.
think it's earlier. I think the 80s, from my memories.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I know
it may
that
have- it may
there
have
was a
been
lot of
different part it,
ongoing
yeah.
ongoing
we were
filming.
chuckling because we have boxes full of loose newspapers down at the museum that are stamped Clackamas County Historical Society that are also stamped University of Oregon. So
Are you
apparently
able
they
to-
traveled.
Are you able to zoom in? Yeah, great.
Yeah, the brochure that I passed out gives a lot of search tips.
Yeah.
And I wanted to let you know that this is basically the first time that this has been gathered in a written format. So I'm kind of fumbling out there in the dark. And if you see anything that just doesn't make sense, feel free to let me know. The brochure is a work in progress. We also have now we have a web page on our library page that has a link to the search tips, and that's set up for people who are looking from Texas or wherever to see what they can find.
Are they digitizing the newspapers only from the organizations that got a grant, took the trouble? So were there some that in that early microfilming of all Oregon newspapers, some of them aren't going to be digitized because
Well,
libraries didn't get the money?
We're the first library to get a grant and to pay for the digitizing. And in fact, there has been some talk about our project being a template for other libraries in Oregon that want to do this type of project and receive LSTA funding. LSTA was evidently quite supportive of the University of Oregon efforts, and therefore they saw the proposal I submitted as being a good tie-in to what was going on. So, the hope is that more libraries will do this. I know that
And we find more money.
the digital newspaper program is working on the, was it the Portland Journal or the Oregon Journal?
Oregon Journal.
Yeah, so.
Are there a lot of other newspapers that aren't shown, that are on our map that we just saw? There are a lot that still aren't fully documented. Okay, so there's,
Well, you mean that aren't on microfilm or
Yes.
that aren't digitized?
well, I guess I'm asking both, but
As far as we, in terms of the microfilming, I think the project in the 90s was the last attempt to microfilm everything.
so that's pretty well captured.
Except I don't know what has happened since. I know that the Oregon City News, for example, hasn't been microfilmed.
Well, all of the
So,
things that were being microfilmed, that big push you're talking about when they first did it, they still microfilm them all. They're still. So Lake Oswego, they're microfilmed up to only hard copies in the library. So probably Oregon City too, sending newspapers constantly, so they're microfilmed up to 2013.
This is still the current process. So,
there is
Digitizing this too.
There is a link on the Oregon Digital Newspaper website that shows what's been microfilmed, arranged by county.
So that the
Uh-huh.
Easier.
so that the information.
So-
Well, I'm just kinda
maintains
wondering,
its integrity.
how do you know
Don't have to
what's
worry
not
about,
done?
You don't. I mean,
Okay.
there's rumors, but
Okay.
there's
So there's more
probably,
discoveries to be made.
yeah.
Our paper's
Yeah, come
missing.
look at some of my.
Yeah, it's kind of
There's a, lot,
exciting.
there's a lot of newspapers missing from the 1880s for some reason, and it's universal across Oregon. The 80s are really spotty, and we think everybody insulated their walls with them or something because there was a depression. I just,
There's a federal website that also looks at newspapers. But okay, so now to search this website, you see here the third button in says search. And this is where I recommend going if you're going to do a search. That's because there's so many ways to refine your
That's
search.
what I'm doing wrong.
Pardon?
That's what I'm doing wrong. I'm searching off the first screen instead of hitting this search button.
So
Breaking
I'm going to
nugget.
do an example which I think will explain some of these features. Okay, I went wrong here once before. We're going to pick the Oregon City Couriers. And I'm going to go with the box that says phrase. And let's look for reading room. Under the search button.
Now, in this case, you didn't say anything about a range of dates or anything, so
No.
it's going to go and take a look at everything then. Is that the presumption?
Correct.
Okay.
Everything in the Oregon City Courier.
Okay.
And notice, I like this third one in. Let's click on it. Come on, open up.
Like how?
Okay, so,
Oh, good article.
yeah. How about that?
Made for the library board.
I know.
Large crowd in
Well,
attendance.
and the fact that I read every single Oregon City newspaper from 1870 to 1912 to gather the information that Sue just brought up in one search.
Yes.
Oh yeah, this is truly remarkable. It really is.
I did my research too early.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you did it, though. I pull that
I read a
book
lot
out
of
all the time.
newspapers.
Now, the red, kind of reddish, pinkish, let's expand that. Looks for the word,
really close.
the words reading room as a phrase together, one after the other. And
Lovely.
it highlights them in this reddish,
It's
pinkish.
separating out room, however.
Yeah,
Well,
if it finds an
it
incident of the
doesn't-
word room or reading,
It's not
that will
consistent, I don't
pull.
think.
right, there's a lot of bugs.
And what's the background? Is this generated out of Nexus Lexis or what do you think the underlying program is that helps us
Program?
do this searching? Uh-huh.
Um,
I'm just curious.
I think, well,
Yes.
I'm not totally up on exactly
Well, I
what
guess
the mechanics of. I think it's based on the chronicling. Let's see. I knew that there was going to be things
One
I
of
wouldn't
those
be able to
technical
answer off the
questions.
cuff.
Fine.
Well, that's-
Chronicling American Newspapers website, which remind me, and I'll show you that if you're interested. But I have a feeling it's very much based on that particular website.
Well, there's two ways of doing it. There's recording every word into a digital database, and then the other one is the visual, linking it visual.
I thought it was visual, was my understanding,
So
but
this is all by visual.
yeah, that was
Okay.
my understanding.
That means
but
that's all I
I-
was
I could
interested
be
in.
wrong, yeah.
That means that ads will be included as well.
I
if you
think it
wanted
is
to search
OCR because
ads.
yeah, I think it's OCR because I get bad results sometimes, but I can see how it thinks it saw that word.
Yeah, OCR rings a bell.
Optical character.
Okay, so back to the search
Got it.
page. One thing I think that's a bit confusing, you'll see the assorted search boxes down toward the bottom. And one of them says inner search with any of the words, with all of the words, with the phrase, which we just
Can you
did,
spell Boolean?
and with the words within so many words of each other. If you entered reading room as any of the words, it would look for all the pages that had the word reading on it and all the pages that had the word rooms on it. So you'd get practically every page
What about, you said rooms as a plural? That's an interesting point.
Or,
Well, but I'm
Yeah,
wondering
reading
if
room.
it
Well-
truncates, and so it would, if you said
Yeah.
plural, would it pick up all
I
plurals
think-
plus? I'm not sure.
you know, I had the answer one time. I think that it,
I don't
may-
think so if it's optical.
yeah.
You know, if it
Well,
wasn't optical, then
Yeah.
it makes sense that it would, but otherwise.
Right.
yeah, you know, I don't know, and that's something. Thank you
Have
for
to do some
asking that.
searches.
That's something I'll find out for the next time. You know, I'm a baby searcher. I'm just taking those first steps here. All of the words would be reading and room on a page, but not necessarily together. You know, reading could be up here and room could be down here. And then within 5 or, you got some choices here, 10 or 50 or 100 words of each other. That would be very useful for names, because you don't know, if you're looking for an obituary, you don't know if the maiden name is in there, if the middle name's in there, if the nickname's in there. So if you put the first and last name and within 5 words of each other, you're probably going to get everything with someone's name. Is that making
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Am I
Mhm.
explaining that?
And they're not just randomly all over the page.
Right, right.
Well, what's with the words?
With all the words?
With
with
any
the
of
words.
the words, or with all the
I mean,
words.
is
Well-
that separate?
No,
or
so
does
you,
it go
so
with
you
the
could,
top row?
it goes with the top row. So you could have like, look for the phrase reading room with the words,
Private
Masons,
or Masons.
within 10 words of each other or
See, I
something.
wasn't sure if that was only on that bottom row, because it doesn't fit on that.
Yeah,
No,
well,
I
here's an
think
example.
That one you have to enter
Yeah,
both
no, I
both
hear
words.
you, and I could be wrong with what I just
No,
said.
that's what I
Let's-
thought first.
Yeah. Let's do Emma Dye, because we don't know. Is she going to be under,
Her name
or I'm
Eva?
sorry, Eva Dye?
That's right.
Is she going to be under Eva Dye or Eva Emery Dye?
Oh,
I mean, I've always heard Eva Emery Dye, but, well, so that would be an example.
She was an early liberator.
So this search will pick up Eva Dye, Eva Emery Dye,
Ooh,
so
nice
forth.
picture.
could you have put Eva Dye up with the
Here again, we're only
previous
looking at the
row,
courier.
All the words.
And then that
Searches.
5, would that, within 5 relate to it still?
You could.
You
Oh,
probably,
it's
well,
Miller's edition. Okay.
Just have to check.
possibly.
Oh, I was trying to see what edition that was,
This
because
is
that
a
has
fun
a
tool
lot
to
of
play with.
information. But-
Yeah, yeah. That, you know, if any of you do try some of these different ways of searching and you find out something, email me and let me know, because that would be nice to hear. Okay, so I'm going to move on to our new catalog. But before I get there, do you have any further questions about this website?
So
Or about the- or-
anything on the website is printable in the
Yes.
public domain.
Mhm.
Yes,
Marvelous.
all public domain.
And
And you can download it as a PDF, so you can manipulate it. The only problem we had the other day, we downloaded a PDF and the red highlight was still there. And when we printed it on a laser printer, it just disappeared. So
It was
we
redacted.
had to fill the words back in.
Weird.
No?
and
Yeah.
that one is tied in with a national database as well.
Oh, what is that called? American
You're chronicling America.
Chronicling
Chronicling
America.
America.
I'm just curious, so that if you looked up something that would have been on a national level, you can see what the Oregon perspective was versus, say, New York or Texas or whatever.
You know, a lot of the newspapers are available through paid services. Is it the National Archives or the Library of Congress that's doing chronicling? Is it LOC?
Library of Congress. I
Okay,
believe.
yeah. The Chronicling America is free, but it's not everything. Some of the newspapers are bought up by newspaper.com and Genealogy Bank.
Chronically America? That's what,
Chronicling.
oh, chronicling. She put in chronically, but it still came up. That was good.
Critic.
Good, thank you,
Hey,
Google.
it's smart.
Yeah, so
1690 to the present.
this is what I think that Historic Oregon Newspapers has been fashioned on.
Is there a link to this on the Historic Oregon newspaper website?
Yes.
Great. Which I just call Honey. You know, a Historic Oregon newspaper, Hun.
Oh,
I just call it Honey.
Oh, that's good. I'll have to, my honey.
I have another question about, so Oregon City's the first to do this, but the first in what way? Because weren't all those other newspapers digitized that we saw that list?
First library.
We were the first library to get a grant from LSTA to do it.
How were those others put on then?
U of O got money.
Yeah, they
basically.
got money from,
Oh, they all got, everyone got money from somewhere.
Well,
Okay.
Oregon,
First
they
LSD.
already owned a whole bunch of things, and they digitized all the stuff they owned first, is what I understood.
okay, so,
They own everything in that project that Karen.
No, but
we were talking about.
before the
own all
project
that.
started, they owned a bunch of microfilm. So they digitized what they owned
At
first.
Before that microfilming project.
Mhm.
here,
Yeah.
here
Yeah,
is
they owned the microfilm to start with.
the
Yeah.
major sources of the program funding.
So this is one of those things that has come in addition to what they already owned.
And I believe that we will be on here at some point after we pay them.
Again, money.
They'll get their money.
Yeah.
One thing to think about is on these digitized newspapers, lots of the words are blurry. And so if you're really looking for something, you might have to go back and read the newspapers as well.
Well, yeah, but sometimes, at least if you've got a date range, it is so
Right.
much nicer to be
Right.
able to read it, you know, and those microfilm readers, even the new ones, sometimes they don't actually enlarge as much as I'd like them enlarged, and on my screen I can go, wow.
But I think this, in combination with our new microfilm reader, are going to be really nice because you can use the tool that fits what is available to you.
I have a researcher coming in now to the library who is looking for lots of different things, and he has used the Historic Oregon Newspaper's website, and he's also come in to use the microfilm. And sometimes he does both for an issue. Sometimes we race, but
And this is just a little bit technical, but how would you search for photographs? Would you have to use?
They're captioned.
That you have to use something that would be in the caption in order
Yeah.
to get to the photographs.
But the entire Oregonian's available online through a Multnomah County library card. And I've had, basically, if I put the right name in a caption, I've gotten a lot of photographs out. The problem is, by the time you microfilm and then digitize a newspaper photograph, it's not highly recognizable.
Sure.
But
But it could be an interesting source.
yeah, because I've been doing some genealogy work on the Stevens and the Crawford families, and we found wedding photos and things by, the bride's name popping up in a search of the Oregonian.
okay, so Clackamas County Library System's got a new catalog called Enterprise.
Sure do.
And one thing that's interesting is we have our customized Oregon City Public Library page. And that's what you see if you use the catalog in the library. But if you go from home or, some other remote place, you'll see a more generic version. I mean, it's pretty much the same. And again, like our other website, I'm not going to be giving you a big training, but I'm just going to show you some of the new features. And Mo is going to pitch in too on this. But one thing you'll notice here, this beautiful river of new books.
That's what they call it. That's the official technical
a
title.
river.
The
Right.
river.
Medicine.
Right, because it keeps flowing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I look at this
Alter the speed?
and I want everything.
Mhm.
You can do the arrows.
Oh, yeah, you could go back.
Is
Oh,
that right?
really? Oh, so
That's
you would have a
nice.
chance to, oh, that's clever.
You don't see any bestsellers, it's because none of them are in the library.
Oh, wow.
That's
Oh, that I
that's
didn't
smart,
know.
really.
Well, but if you want to put it on hold,
You can still put it on hold.
but you
You
don't
can
know
go
it's
here.
there.
But it's not gonna show on that ribbon.
This is a browsing.
Yeah, yeah. So if you sit down at the
Browser
back
got
of the
smarter.
library and want
The
something,
search
that'll
thing.
show you what's
Oh, that, I think that's a
I
cool
didn't have
feature.
gone on my phone.
The library
It's
version
like,
of
wow, it's on the phone.
bookstore marketing.
Oh.
But you can go here on the right, new arrivals and bestsellers and award winners and
That's the right.
That's
or
a
the
lot
left,
of
the
difference.
other right.
I'm easily confused.
The other
so,
right.
You know.
Well, obviously, I'm easily confused too. So, let's say you want to know before you go to the library, before you trot into the library, just what cookbooks are on the shelf. So I'm just going to do a kind of a shotgun search here at cookbooks. This isn't terribly elegant, but so we've got 2,789 hits. So over here on the left, we can click on to Oregon City and click on to include. And that narrows it down to 117 results. So basically these are things, materials that have cookbooks in the subject or the title or the author. Now let's say we just want books. We don't want electronic books. We
Can you say all that are in or not?
Yes.
Oh.
Jump
It's
the gun,
on.
Claire.
Oh, I'm jumping ahead.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
sorry.
It's right up there, only show available.
Okay, well,
Oh, there it
we'll
is.
do that. Up here where it says only show available, you can click on that,
It's down to 70.
down to 70.
Wow.
So the available is a new feature. And as you can see, there's a lot of ways one can narrow. There's a language component.
It's really very easy.
It's great.
But the underlying program is actually a purchased program, so we're likely to see something similar to this in other cities and other states. Is that right?
No,
No?
the name of it is just Enterprise. That's just the
Mhm.
name of it. It has nothing to do with selling or anything.
No, but other
No, I-
libraries must have this same program.
Oh,
In
well,
other
it's
states
all
Cersei
over.
Dynex is the
Is-
program.
They're the
so-
software
They're the
They're
company.
manufacturer.
They're the company, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, other libraries would have this,
Other libraries
with their
have
holdings.
things that are similar, not necessarily all the same. Multnomah County Library and has
Like
Millennium
Millennium, oh yeah.
that does have a checkpoint for available items, and you can narrow to that particular library. And now they've put an overlay over that, which allows for kind of more interactive and Fort Vancouver has Cersei Dynex, but they've done some different things with theirs. You know, in the metro area, there's a whole set of.
So there are multiple competing companies out there
Right,
offering
there's
the
multiple.
software.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
and you
yeah.
just
And they talk about compete. They compete.
Sure, I'm sure they try to sell you
These
on
are
this stuff,
big.
sure.
These are big businesses. Yeah.
Okay.
I like
well,
this one though.
Yeah.
Insight into
It's
how the
really
library works.
interesting, actually.
It's not like
Company.
pharmaceutical companies, you don't get free stuff and free trips, but they're competitive.
I see.
I just like the way this thing dials down to, you know you're looking at a fairly broad spectrum, but you want something a lot smaller
Yeah.
within that. You can dial it down fairly easy using little checkpoints.
Very granular. The biggest complaint about this is that because it's so image heavy, is it's way slower. And so that's what we keep hearing. And then people are still getting used to like finding things on the page, like, where's my account stuff? You know, and it's kind of like right up there in the corner where it was. But,
Here's my
Yeah.
account.
You know,
So-
the information's all there. It's transferred over very
it's
nicely.
really very intuitive, yeah. But, and it's just so much more pleasing to look at.
Who actually made the overall purchase? Because this is Clackamas County-wide, is it not?
Yeah, this is Clackamas County-wide. So this is a county purchase because they run the software stuff and they,
So they had the initiative to put
well,
the new software on?
they were pushed by the directors
Uh-huh.
on this one.
Right, you were
Yeah, we were like,
complaining.
okay, this catalog is gotta go.
Because
We-
the old catalog
it
was
really-
pretty,
It was out
pretty
of
rough.
date.
Really bad.
It was out of
Yeah.
date.
Yeah, it was really out of date, and the directors just kind of kept at network until they finally.
How easy is this to update? So if say a patron comes in and says, you've got an error on your website
Right.
regarding this item, how easy is it to go in and fix
I don't
things
know
like
how
that?
easy it is, but we send tickets off to network, all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you see something, just let us know immediately. They've got a database guy that's really very good. That has only been there, gosh, less than a year, and he did this entire project.
Wow, one guy.
Well, yeah, mostly one guy.
But
I
it's
mean,
basically just maintaining the data that's put into this. It's all
Yeah.
loaded. This is
Yeah,
not,
do that.
I mean, when we changed our library systems at my library, we went to Destiny to the upgrade that had the images. So all we do is send the information and the records, and then we can update the records as we increase the holdings. So
one of the most difficult things on this is that there's 11 libraries or whatever, so each one has its own little profile. So it's
I had
putting
two
a lot of
dogs sitting on
information
my
in
name.
about
Yes,
all
it is.
that stuff.
Yes.
yeah.
But it's not like a whole new library system. Like this is just another
My books.
feature that's already offered by the library system that we use. Like Laura was saying. You know, if we went to a completely new product, oh, now that would be big. That would be like if we changed to what Multnomah County was using or something.
Oh,
To
I
a
see.
completely different vendor, that would be, like, that would take a lot of work.
Wow, Netflix.
One thing the old one did that I liked, and I went into my preferences and didn't have it. When you started to, from home, put in your card number, it remembered it and just filled it out.
This does too.
It worked for me.
Yeah, you just have to tell you that's a computer issue as opposed to the
thing,
program.
Not here. Oh, because on the other program it just did it. But
Yeah,
that's
if you're using this on your home computer, just tell your computer to remember the password, and it'll take care of that.
I do that. Okay, I'll figure it out.
It'll pop up.
Oh.
It'll pop up.
Yeah. I logged into my account so you could just see what the account looks like. You log in
I
here.
noticed the fine.
and then- I
$4.
Better use
I
that
know.
media.
But she does have to use the hold system.
21 holds waiting. Or
Yeah, that's
only
like
ready
me.
one, but 21. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember having to beg to get a high user account.
Well, this
Still not sure if we trust you with that.
Mm-hmm.
this is probably the fewest things I've had checked out in a long time. So.
What's preferred list?
Oh, when you have a segment called My Lists, and you can have, say you're looking for cookbooks, but you want, say, German cookbooks. You put German cookbooks, and you put those in that one list, and then you want to look up Chinese cookbooks, and
So you're
you
just
can do a
saving
separate
the
list,
list as you
and then
go.
your preferred
Right.
list is whatever is on
Yeah.
top.
And
And
you know what you've read?
So
sometimes
here's here's a list I created for one of our patrons who wants
Spanish cookbooks.
cookbooks in Spanish. So the easiest thing for me to do is to just make a list in my own account. So then I can help her get her cookbooks.
Very nice. And
This to me is a list that's texted to you, or what does that mean? When it comes, send a text rather than whatever?
I think it's the
I think it's texting the
you still have to put a
title
hold on
and
it.
so forth. But
That's pretty interesting. You can
is
do
it the
text.
holds available?
Yeah, that looks like your mobile number you
Well,
made. So
I don't know.
I bet so. That your
Maybe.
text instead of phoned or
I haven't used that
emailed or
one.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let us know how it is.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've
One
been
thing-
talking about this stuff for
I know
45
why.
minutes.
Yeah, one more thing.
More
that you're
interesting
supposed-
than the
Down
average.
here at the bottom, classic catalog.
Relatively.
Just in
Yes.
case you can't stand it.
Oh, yeah.
That's the old.
For that,
Yeah.
There we're back.
yeah, so.
It comes up on Library Connect really nice on my iPhone too, by the way. I've been playing with it over here.
Mobile?
Yeah.
Library Anywhere?
It takes you, I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
I have
even
Library
mobile.
Anywhere.
it's-
Is it the same thing?
Is it Anywhere? Sorry, yes, I meant Library Anywhere.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Great.
much for sharing
Thank
with
you,
us.
Sue. Great job.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you want us to fill these out and
Tonight
turn-
or later?
Yeah, if you could.
Okay.
Well, or you
Leave.
can get them to me later. Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
it-
All right.
I've lost me.
Thank you.
And thank you all
Thank you,
for
thank you,
not
Sue.
only inviting me, I invited myself, but also for all the work you do for the library. I know, it's a lot of work, dragging yourself out to a meeting when it's dark.
No, it's dark now, that's for sure.
All right, so
Great,
we're moving
thank
on
you, Sue.
to the library director's report.
Okay.
And before you get there, Library Director, I'm going to apologize, but my thumb is throbbing. I am going.
She was attacked by her cat earlier today.
My cat thought it would be fun to try to amputate my thumb.
I almost lost my finger last year for that. Did you get antibiotics?
I have not yet. I need to
You
take
should
care of that.
you should go like now. I'm not
Okay.
kidding you. I was on an IV drip for 3 days. You should go and really have it. Did they break into the skin?
Sue.
No,
No.
you should go like now. Yeah. You really should.
Okay, all right, thanks
See you,
for
Karen.
coming.
Thank you.
Well, you should.
But thank you.
You should take
because
care of
I
it.
really negligent.
Yeah, it's something you shouldn't be at. Trust me, and I'm not one to go to the doctor. So go. Seriously.
Okay, so let's see here, let me get to my, we'll make this quick. So you saw the statistics, we're doing well. Our checkouts, kind of funny, our checkouts are still a little bit down, but our door count is still a little bit up. It's like there's more people, but they're checking out fewer things. So,
Could be that they're checking out the building to see what it looks like now so that they'll know what it looks like
yeah,
later.
yeah. I know. I saw a couple outside tonight taking pictures of it, and I was like, just you wait. And then I was like, oh, maybe they're preservationists. Anyway, so our big event in October was Virginia Woolf and Brian Doyle, and the Star Wars party, and they were both very, very enjoyable.
Lover's picture.
Yeah,
So-
Virginia and Brian were just, they were just great. They were just dear hearts. They were just so fun and
Good.
to listen to and interesting, and the Star Wars party was insane.
How many
really
people
was.
were there?
Well, I think there was well over 200.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
packed.
It was packed. And so, we really weren't prepared for that many. And so now we know that if you have a Star Wars party in Oregon City, you have to be prepared for a lot of people.
I think if you have something free for kids and for families,
Yeah. And the
You have
thing
to
about
be-
Star Wars is it's really good for families
Yeah.
because it kind of spans the age groups.
yeah.
So that worked out really well.
And it shows you that the amount of space that you'll need for an event room
Yeah.
in terms
Yeah.
of, or an event room meaning a flex space that shelves
Yeah.
can be moved.
Yep.
That flexibility.
So, if we have this again next year, we won't have our new building yet. So I'd really like you guys to think about what you think about having a library events at other buildings, and if that takes away from the library at all. Is it worth being crowded and in the library, or is it worth going to the Pioneer Center? Do you know what I mean? And doing a bigger deal. So just think about that. Just ponder that. So let's see. What I'd probably really like to talk more about is the building and the update, and then the interviews for next month, and then another couple of things. But let's just, unless anybody has any questions about statistics or anything else.
No.
Okay. So last night, Karen, DA, and Claire attended the City Commission work session with me. Thank you very much for being there. And along with Matt and Krista from Cressa, who you guys have met before, we reported to the City Commission basically just what's been going on. So basically our report is that we've done a tree study, a parking study, and a geotech study, and no large red flags have like appeared on the horizon. And the parking study took into account the purchase of the parking lot, which gave us 19 additional spaces. And how that gets used is up for discussion, at this point. So we can go like more into that later, but it really helped alleviate kind of that pressure that we were feeling to like, you don't have enough parking. And then, some good questions were raised, like, well, are you still going to do diagonal? What about handicap, blah, blah. And that obviously can still be dealt with. I'd like to have handicap as close to a door as possible, and I'm thinking that I'd love to have it on Jefferson, some handicap parking spaces right on Jefferson, and that if at all possible, we have an entrance on Jefferson. I just think we have 2 entrances now, we can do it. If we could have 2 entrances and it works with the elevations and stuff, that's the funky part.
Yeah.
Then like have some handicap parking right there, and maybe some express parking.
Right.
A couple of 15-minute spaces or something. I think that would be so awesome.
Something with some painted lines.
Yeah, and yeah.
Because
I know.
I'm over there all the time. It's like
I know.
I'd like to park in front, and I'm not quite sure if I can fit my rig there. So park in the parking lot.
That's the thing about they're hesitant to put those in. I don't know why for parallel, but for diagonal, of course, you have to have them, and that's one reason I think you can get so many more cars in. It's just because you have lines.
Right.
But anyway, so taking that information to the cost estimator person, looking at where we are with like bond interest rates and stuff, all of it, what they did is they took the plan, not the concept from the images that they thought would cost the most, which is actually the one with the funky roof. And they said, cost estimate this out, because that would be the maximum of like what we would end up building. They were just looking for a high point. And so that all came in at like really close to the same, and they included money for us to move and be somewhere else for like a year, and they included all kinds of stuff. So we feel really good about where the budget is. And then I've sat down with our finance director, and we've gone over, our cost projections, and we feel really good about being able to pay for the annual bond payment and maintenance of the building as well. So I think all of our assumptions are being checked, and they're coming back like, go forward, which is really, really good. So basically, that's what we were there to tell the City Commission last night. And we were saying that, and next steps would be to get an architect in place and start on design stuff. Because the one thing that we do know from the geotech is that, and you don't really need a geotech to know this, but where that's located, starting in the dry months is going to be better than starting in the wet months, right? That just makes sense in Oregon, right?
That's right.
So, but there's springs there that would flow more heavily and during the winter than in the summer. So just to like make it easier, you want to start when it's dry. So if we can get an architect on board really pretty quickly, then we could start some design stuff and some public meetings with design stuff and blah, 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 and just get going.
And permits take a long time.
Yeah. So that's our next steps, is like do the RFP for the architect, the project manager, and then, not too far down the road, contractor, however that all works out. Okay. So Matt and Krista are helping put together the architect, and I actually sent a thing out to Libsor today, like, okay, you guys send me your architect RFPs. I just want to see what they look like, so that but my primary things are we want somebody with library experience,
Yes.
And historical experience if possible.
Right.
So those are my 2 main things that I want to add.
Yeah.
So we could be posting this like relatively quickly, because it has to be in the Journal of Daily Commerce for a certain number of days, and that's where everybody that does this stuff looks. So we won't have any problem getting people's attention, believe me. It's well on their alert anyway. They've been like contacting me. So then we'll go into the selection process, and what I'd like to do with the selection process is have like a relatively small committee made up of some people on city staff, and then maybe like one representative from this library board, because I think it would be more efficient and it would go faster if it was like a small group. And so I kind of need some feedback from you guys on that, and/or a volunteer.
This is the final choice you're trying?
This is the final choice of the architect.
Well, I want to give you a whole lot of feedback right now before you ask, maybe finalize that question.
Okay.
There, you know, we did in my background, I did a lot of CMGC work.
What's that?
And that's probably how this library will get built. It's a contracting method that's specified in the state of Oregon for negotiated contracts rather than hard money bid.
What does CMG
contract.
stand for?
Construction manager, general contractor.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a style where you bring the contractor on, they give you a budget, not to exceed number, and then they're supposed to work on your behalf to
Meet that
help
budget.
Meet that budget, but also help get the building built within the budget for the best building you can get.
And one of the benefits of this is that they are brought on early.
Yes.
And they work with the architect so that there's not misunderstandings down the road, right? That there's like,
Well,
things get
yes.
reviewed early on.
And
from
then methods are chosen jointly rather than, for instance, right now, say the library in the picture right behind us sort of proclaims a steel building. Steel's really expensive right now. It's very possible that a concrete frame would be less expensive. And those are things that contractors really have a
They
handle
think
on,
about,
of course.
right.
And if an architect designs in a vacuum and creates a steel building that just costs more money for structure than for, you know, you have all this money wasted in structure that could be spent on the finishes and the interiors and so on.
Right.
And so to put everyone together at the same time, you can get a much better picture of where we are today in the current environment of what's our most expensive or least expensive construction method, so that you drive the costs out of the ground and the structure and the areas that nobody cares about ultimately, and into those areas that really meet the important needs of the library. So getting the contractor on board as early as possible is an important issue. Now, when you have the CMGC concept in place, then that professionalizes the contractor and requires that they do a lot of the kind of work that a construction manager otherwise would do, and that partly that the architect should know about, but don't have the kind of access to cost to know for sure how things should go. So I have been back when we did Washington County Jail, for instance. We were chosen first before the architect and construction manager was brought on. A completely different approach. The traditional approach is you get the designer and the manager, and then the contractor just comes
like
along and builds.
way down the road.
Yeah. And involving them ahead of time can be specifically very useful. So that's important for us to mull around, because it might be that there's language in the city charter that says this is the only way we can do it.
No, we
Maybe not.
have whatever options are available through state law are available
Okay.
to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So we
there's-
can look at those models.
So there's nothing in there that says what the sequence is. It just says you need to have these various
Well,
components.
I mean, I
these
don't even
players.
think it says how you go out and do these things. There's practice, and there's
Yeah.
like, if you are gonna go out and do these things, this is how they are done.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. So we have to stay in line with that.
Yeah.
But it's important to make some pretty early decisions
Mm-hmm.
now, and we're right up to needing to do that, about when and what kind of contractor we're interested in having. And that's going to have a big influence on our costs. We really want an architect that's got historic background and library background.
Yep.
We want a contractor that's very much the same way. So if it's bid, you're going to get anybody who comes
Yeah.
along and has a bond and can bid that
Right,
$10
and
million
don't you
project.
typically then take just the low bid
Yeah, well, you're
of-
required to unless
Yeah.
it's, unless
Right.
it's specifically, not a responsive bid.
Yeah.
So you have that, and so you don't have the qualification process. You bring the contractor in earlier and qualify them and choose on the basis of qualification. then you've got a more professional approach, and you're looking for people that are contractors that have the same specific backgrounds as the architects you want. There, I think you can create a better team. So, and in that regard, it doesn't matter whether you do that before or after your architect selection. But I would compress that and bring that together, and that may be a discussion that needs to happen, a little bit further with city staff and so forth, so they understand what we might want to do here.
Well, I mean, even Krista mentioned something about that last night, about the architect, or the contractor coming on relatively soon. She said that.
Yeah, I
don't know if you
thought it
heard
was
that.
always
Yeah.
I mean, I thought we were breaking great ground when we came in first and were involved in the architect selection as a contractor. That's a very different approach. It worked out really well at on that particular project.
Well, would it, I mean, bringing an architect in and then bringing a contractor in very soon afterwards, that would be okay too, right?
Oh, yeah.
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 Well,
So-
weren't you, though, saying something about the contractor maybe has more information?
About pricing and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So,
The means and methods of construction can really
Yeah.
sway the
But were you
the cost of
not,
something.
did you not mention that it might be good to have the contractor first?
Well, we went, at Washington County, we went as far as having, or Washington County went as far as having the contractor on first and having them involved in the selection of the architect.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
It went to that extreme. That was really different. The tradition is to get the architect as part of the team selecting the contractor.
Yeah, so, right, because the contractor, would they have to, if they're giving some input, would they have to know
Yeah, they got to know something.
who they'd want to work with
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as architects?
And they do. They all know that.
But would we know a contractor?
That process, it allows somebody who actually has real-world knowledge of pricing and materials and whatnot to have a major say on keeping the reins on the architect who may have some brilliant creative ideas, but it's like, no, we need some practical stuff for this, this, and this. We want to save our money here to spend it here, and blah, blah, blah. I think that's what you're trying to
It's
say.
a lot of that. It's a lot of that. And one of the drawbacks is you get a very practical contractor in there, and he doesn't want a single bit of design
Yeah.
because
Right,
a
so
design
there needs to
feature
be-
doesn't
yeah.
do anything
Right,
for
and
us.
this is
Right.
a
It
public
looks pretty.
building that's very much designed, I feel, is a driving part of this project in terms of public
Now we're getting
perception,
to it.
reception.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that a good architectural firm will have the flexibility to provide designs that, as you said, for the example, we can't do this with steel. We need to do it with concrete. Do you know what I mean? Like
That's right.
ideally, an architectural firm is able to say, here's choice A, B, C, D, and the contractor says, we could do this for that, and that for that, and, right?
Well, and they operate
There's a lot of give and take.
as a
in that.
team. That's
Yeah.
what I was going
But
to
if
say.
they operate as a team,
Team.
those kinds of discussions occur so that instead of us hearing a lot of it, that happens, and then they can come united to
Yeah.
to whoever the final
Right.
selection committee is, and say, you know, this is what we think is going to be the best structure, and this is the
Right.
best approach, and
Right.
you know.
Right.
Because we have a sloping site, you know, wiggling the building this way and that, and all those little cost, they can be very, very cost
Heavy.
heavy.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
just because somebody wants the building symmetrical and somebody else wants, you know, all glass at the top, or, you know, that kind of thing, those issues need to be discussed. And if the team works together, they can balance the design with the practical aspects of cost. Now, I'm a big advocate, just personally, for government buildings being our best source of monumental design. You just don't generally get it in the private sector. And some of our most beautiful buildings are because the government entities spend a little more money on design and worry a little bit less, and sometimes a lot less, about the actual fundamental costs of what's going on. So Edith
Right.
Green is a good example of that. In fact, if I'll give you a second idea about that. The Edith Green building was built in the late 1960s, early 70s, and
Wait,
it was
what's the Edith Green
Oh,
building?
that's the federal building downtown that just got remodeled. GSA is just moving back
Okay,
in.
okay.
13
where
or
it is.
14 stories, something
Yeah.
like that. Anyway, it was put out for hard money bid by GSA to be built as a concrete building. But they have a program called value engineering, and the contractor value engineered it to steel, so it became a steel building with precast concrete, which was a big savings. The interior of the building essentially is the same. There was no functional difference for the government, except they saved about 25% on the cost of the building. However, less than 10 years ago, they recognized the building was out of date and needed to be redone. They decided to completely replace the skin because of security issues, homeland security issues. So the skin now on the building is completely different. They've remodeled the building. It probably would not have needed it if they had not taken the value engineering options
Oh, okay.
in the late 1960s. But today, it's completely remodeled.
Right.
And it's done rather than tearing down the building and replacing it. So, 50 years later, they redo the building. Well, it wasn't that much. It was 30 years later. They're already wanting to redo the building. So the value engineering probably wasn't such a good idea in a 30-year horizon.
Right.
And how do we know in 30 years
Yeah.
what it's going to be like?
That's right.
Those are issues
Because
that
those
that
are
can
really
come
hard
up.
things to look out at.
That's
yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
that's part of making intelligent choices about our building
Right.
and what we want it to do.
Yes.
So we may be faced with smaller versions of that kind of issue. The kind of money they were talking about there was several $100 million this
Yeah.
last go around. So
Well,
great for Portland economy, but
it is, but
and this will be good for Oregon City economy. We're going to get a lot of contractor interest, but we will be excluding a lot if we go to the negotiated process, the CMGC process, because we'll be qualifying them. And if we bid it, we're going to be getting a lot more interest from other people who probably don't have the experience. And is that going to be important or not? I can tell you, I did a few projects when I was inexperienced and thought they came out pretty good, and I can remember one that didn't. So,
yeah. The way I look at this is it's like this is once in a couple lifetimes project, right? It's been 100 years since Oregon City has built a library, and it could be a really long time. I mean, the way
Well, it should be.
And it should be, but the way libraries are going, I mean, it could be the last library we build in Oregon City, And it feels to me like just even to honor the Carnegie, we want to build something that will last as long as the Carnegie has lasted.
Right.
And so I don't want it to be like, a monument that is like the Taj Mahal or anything like that is over and not right for Oregon City. That, you know what I mean? I don't want it to be like too much. I want it to be just right. I want it to be built really well. I want it to be really functional. I want it to serve the people of Oregon City well. And it seems to me like in order to do that, we need to make sure that the people who are working on the job are very qualified for the unique situation that we have here, which is, we're building an addition onto a very historic, beloved, iconic building in a park setting. And the library aspect has very specific requirements that are very different than other kinds of buildings, as far as technology and things like that. I mean,
That's right.
It's kind of like an airport, but you know what I mean. It's like got certain things that make it unique to that. And so I want it to be done right. I don't want to look at it. That doesn't mean it absolutely has to have like the gazillion-dollar finish. It needs to have the finish that will last a long time and look good, that we can afford, and it needs to be a sustainable thing. We've got our $10 million bucket, and we need to do the most we can with it.
Well, and it can't cost you a pile of dough every year to keep maintaining a roof that leaks and things like that.
Exactly. We need stuff that works.
That's right.
So it seems to me like then you want people on the job that do it right the first time.
Well, let me just make sure everybody understands the difference between the two contracting methods. The CMGC process, we interview people. The contractors come in, they make a presentation, they are telling us all about their qualifications, and the team, we can even be as specific as saying we need to have you identify the team that's going to build the building. Not down to all the laborers and carpenters, but the management team that the contractor brings to the project. And you can get down to that level, and that's very fair to expect. The bidding it, you can expect that you'll get some very low bids, and typically much lower than the guaranteed maximum price that a CMGC contractor will provide. And that's because you're going to expect the architect to have a very, very complete design. You're going to get bids, and you're going to get hit with lots of change orders for every little thing that isn't exactly on the design documents that has to be done in the bid process. The CMGC process, with the guaranteed maximum price, absorbs that and looks at the overall building, and that's the budget. And yes, this little piece of rebar wasn't shown on the drawings, but it needs to be there, and so it's not an extra to the contract. It'll be part of the budget.
Okay, so do I understand you correctly that this process, the CMGC, is that what it is?
That's right.
You're very specific in what you're starting out with. You're getting your contractors and your architects together at the same time, which limits the scope of how far out you can cast your nets for who can bid on that project.
That's correct.
So it's not as big a green light to your area contractors, because we'll lay out requirements saying we'd like to have historical experience, we'd like to have library experience, we'd like to have this kind of a vision, this kind of a whatever for this team. And so it's a fairly compact thing. Whereas if we go with an open bid situation, we've got our designer, our architect in place, and we know what the building's going to look like and how it should end up. And these guys out here, it's a wide net, and they're saying, oh, I can build that building for X amount of $1 million.
Right.
Okay. Less control over the overall process at that point, but better for economic reasons in the area.
Can be. The argument that we've always made is that really under the CMGC process, you get your best value for your dollar spent.
And I'm guessing that what Mo was saying earlier is that process is probably what we should be going with, because we've got major concerns for the preservation of the building as it stands right now, and then the addition being complementary to that original design, but at the same time being long-lasting, just like the original building.
And I think that what that says is we want to base our decisions on qualifications rather than on low bid.
Yeah.
And qualifications of the team that's going to actually do the building for us, I think, is critically important with our project here.
Yeah.
There's one other aspect of CMGC that's important to understand, is that you can get construction started earlier. When you hard money bid the job, you've got to have a whole design and everything complete, and it goes out for bid. And there are some exceptions to this, but essentially with CMGC, you can get foundations and structure pretty well defined. You can get the city to give you a partial building permit and do some sequential stuff, get started, get the work going, and the finishes come along as that happens towards the end of the project.
Right.
It works in phases.
Okay.
This is this is a small project.
Well, I know it's small, but it's kind of complicated as far
Yes.
as like the planning and the historical and all
That's
that
correct.
junk.
So that's a phasing part of the project. That really works well with CMGC. It's very hard to manage when you're hard money bidding the work. So that speaks a lot to also wanting to go to the CMGC process. Obviously, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah.
Although I think if
Yeah.
you get the right architect and you really get hard on the design,
Yeah.
you can really drill down and get somebody to do it cheap. But
So-
you never know.
So I would like to make a proposal. Since DA is clearly like got so much construction And really, that's how you got here. This is why we liked you.
Yeah,
I moved to have him as our representative.
I mean, I think that
Yeah.
you should be like on our search team, if not even like an official liaison to the, I know you've got work, I know
well,
you've got other.
but it's part of the reason I'm here. It's what I
Yeah.
want to do.
Yeah.
And you speak their language.
Well,
Oh,
and
yeah,
you've
I
had
agree
a lot
with
of experience.
Well, there's one caveat that I will have to, I think I would have to excuse myself if Hoffman
Yeah.
became, and I'm sure Hoffman's going to come in and propose on the
Oh, I see
project.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Became a
Yeah.
contractor?
Yeah,
Okay, because that's your relationship
Yeah.
with Hoffman?
yes.
Oh, okay.
And they're the big fish in the little pond, but
Sure.
we were the ones who really pioneered the CMGC process and made it work in this
Interesting.
country, yeah.
Interesting. Well,
So-
but I think you could at least help get us started.
Oh, yeah. But,
And,
if they became interested
Right.
in the project and proposed on it, I think I'd have to excuse myself at that point. Otherwise,
Well,
I'd love to be in
you
there,
could just
turning the
like,
screws on the
and
contract.
if then they didn't get it, you could still.
Then I could step
Step
back in.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And this
agree.
way you could stay on the library board and,
Right.
which
Okay.
I think is where you're very valuable.
Okay, okay. Well, that sounds fine to me.
Great.
Because I want to
Okay.
volunteer my time towards the project.
Yeah.
Um,
And I don't know
more
how
than
much
just
that
being
would,
here.
yeah, and I don't know how much it would involve, but it would be really helpful at this
Mhm.
stage, for sure.
Sure.
Okay, well, I'll get with
And I
Matt
can
and-
fit the time in, so I'll
Okay,
make that
I'll get
work.
with Matt and Krista, and we don't have anything, well, they're writing something up, and we
Oh,
can
yeah.
float some stuff. Okay, that would be great, thanks.
Okay. Is that a motion, or do we have to
I
have
don't,
one?
we don't
Okay.
have enough to vote, do we?
I think
It's-
I don't
I
think we
think
need
we
to vote
also
on that.
Do we
Yeah.
do we need any kind of formal decision about the kind of process we're going to use, or do we need to just follow some consulting recommendations?
I think we can, at this point, we can just follow some consulting recommendations, but I'll be
Okay.
talking to them about this conversation, and
Mhm.
I think they're going that way, and if not,
I mean, that's where most everyone wants to go these days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially with the complexity here.
So I just wanted to mention one thing that I heard kind of off the cuff from one of my supervisors, that they think that the city commission expects just to kind of like it to look exactly like that. So, just so you know.
Well, I think it'll look better when we get done.
I think it will too, because that didn't take a lot of things into consideration,
Right.
And really, the outside, it's a huge concern, but I'm really more concerned about the inside
Yeah.
and the flow of the building and where we put what. I
Yeah.
am way more concerned
Yeah.
with that because of the addition thing and the space that we currently have, and kind of is a little awkward, really.
Yeah.
So, that's going to be fascinating. Okay, so
Um,
I have just a couple more things.
I couldn't open the document for the interview questions.
I couldn't either.
Okay, so I just letting you
Yep.
know it's garbly-gook when you open it.
Oh, okay.
So if that's what
I've
you
got a
want.
copy of it right here.
I've got hard copy.
So we have two candidates. One of them is Laura, who is reapplying, and another one is Tim somebody.
Who, you?
Yeah,
In 2 positions then.
yeah, but both of these guys are in city, and we
So
have
it's one
in city and
position.
out of city.
So what do we do if we needed it? If
What
we don't
is our
have a
balance
candidate?
currently?
Well, we're currently like perfect, except Karen and Laura's positions are becoming open, and Karen is out of city, except
Okay.
now she's moved into the city.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're a little out of balance now.
Well,
be.
we will be.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we only have candidates for the in-city. And so I asked Nancy Ide about that today, and she said, well, it's really up to the mayor. If you have a qualified candidate and he wants to put them in that position, conceivably they could. I would kind of hate to throw the balance off of that.
And
but-
is it closed at this point?
Yeah, it's closed, but again, we could since,
To look
Or
for
could
an
we
out of
reopen
city.
it and
We
look for
might
somebody
yeah.
specifically to get
Yeah.
somebody from the out
Yeah.
of city? Okay.
we might want to do the well, maybe I should talk to Doug. Let me talk to Doug about that, because then we could maybe reopen it.
We didn't.
I didn't realize we had a problem like that.
I didn't look for people or ask people.
Yeah.
I just assumed there'd be a lot of response.
There
and
wasn't.
didn't.
It's sad. So anyway, last year our questions were, why do you want to be on the board? What special skills or strengths do you bring? What issues currently facing the board are the most important to you? We're hoping to build a new library. It will require passage of a bond. Please explain your experience in working to pass bonds. Do you have experience or willing to represent the library at public meetings or speaking in front of the city commissioners? Then we asked, are there special areas of the library collection that you yourself particularly like to use? We just wanted to see if they were library users, I guess. And then could they make the meeting regularly, since that's obviously critical.
We are changing that time, right? Starting the new.
Yeah, and what I thought was, we talked about meeting at 5, and we might as well just start when new candidates come on in January. And we can start the new time for the new year. So, so has anything changed other than rephrasing, we're in the middle of starting this library process. We've gone through blah, 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 and we're at this stage.
I think the questions are all still valid.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
But I think it is important to get a library user question in there, because, that's how we got him down there, so,
It's really,
library
it's
users,
really
yeah.
important. It's really important that
Somebody who's familiar with the process of this is not just the building, but what's in the building and how it's laid out and what's available, and do you know how to use the catalog? Do you know how to use the resources? Do you know who to go to if you've got a question about a given area? That kind of thing.
when you walk in, do you know where things are, or could you tell the director that I need better signage in such and such a place? It's all that stuff that's really helpful.
Well,
I think that's almost all revealed in that one question.
All right.
I'm standing there at the catalog today or yesterday, and the guy's trying to find his stuff on the hold shelf. It's like, you need to look up one more shelf because the E's are up there. It's like, oh, there they are.
I think that you could tweak the question of what's the most important thing. Everyone's going to say
The building,
The
right.
building. So I think that if you have a question that's not, yes, we're building a new building, aside from that, what is the most pressing? Because then it gets
Yeah.
into sort of the children's
within-
room small or this,
Yeah, within the
I think
building
that's
itself,
a really
what
good question.
It's just nuances it a little
Yeah.
bit.
what's important to
But
you
of course
within
you're
your
interviewing me,
library.
so it's really not
Oh.
very
And like-
Insert for something else.
For some people, it's going to be they want their children's section to be designed in such and such a way. They want to be able to have an open space for the little ones, and you want the books in one section, the discs in another, and the games in another section, and the small stuff is separated from the teen stuff. That kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas other people are going to say, well, I want a larger CD selection or DVD, Blu-ray selection, or I want more mysteries, or more.
Or if they
historicals.
really, maybe they understand privacy and confidentiality. Maybe they understand issues we have with internet. That would be great to have people with, those different kinds of understandings
thought-
of different issues that come up.
I thought you had that
Policies.
question in there because there are some people who might some one overriding issue for them is the only reason they want to be in the library board.
Oh, there
I
you
thought
go.
that
Oh,
was,
there's that,
I thought
too.
that was the point of why you had that
Yeah, no.
question.
Just kind of, I think I had it mostly,
Figured awareness.
from my point of view, was an awareness, of what was going on.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's it.
It's at the next meeting, and we'll.
January, not December.
Oh, the interview
interview-
is.
Oh, I'm
Interviews
sorry.
are December,
Yes,
yeah.
the interviews are in December, and I will talk to Doug about reopening.
Do
Mary
I
Millie.
come to the meeting and then dismiss myself, or we'll talk about that?
We'll talk about that.
Okay. So we're on to communications. Does anyone have anything to share? No.
To share?
Well, isn't that what communications is? It's
Yeah,
really-
because we went to a few meetings and spoke, at the Hamlet, and
I apologize for missing
That
that.
went
all right.
real well.
it went really
They
well.
had
So that's the kind of
questions.
thing, I guess. Tonight, I'll stay and talk to the NRC, because we talked about getting together with all the boards. I did talk to PrAC, which is the Parks and Rec, and they were great. At the end of it, they go, "That looks like a great project."
Can we get some of their money?
I don't think they have any money.
No.
Yeah, no. Good thinking.
Well-
Parks are not well
They
funded.
spent it all in the Rivercrest bathrooms.
Yeah, probably, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Is Dawn fine before we adjourn?
Is Dawn fine?
Yeah.
Dawn's fine.
Oh, okay.
He's had another appointment.
Oh, yeah, he's doing
it's a
acting
conflict.
stuff with Grimm. He's more than fine. He's
Oh,
doing great.
I thought he was sick, and then he
No.
had said he missed some other meeting because
No.
he's sick, and I was
Oh, he
saying-
did have a cold. Yeah, no, he's fine. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
And
I'm
future
sorry.
agenda
he's,
items?
He's doing stand-in stuff. Oh man, I'm gonna smack him.
He's acting.
Future agenda items?
Well, for next month,
Mhm.
how far along are we going to be?
We might be far. You'll hear from me between.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I think the board now needs to be really up to date on,
Okay.
on the
We
selection.
can, we can do
process
lots
and
of
so forth.
emails, but that's what probably it's gonna be, that kind of thing, where we're like, you know,
Okay, I'll start reading my emails every day.
Oh my God,
But
I read
only
my
once a
emails
day.
every 5 minutes.
I can-
I'm just like,
Yeah, you better.
I can call you if I'm really desperate, okay?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
So our next regular meeting is December 11th, and I'm adjourning the meeting at 5:57 PM.
All right. A long one.